I think while we wait for some more of our listeners to join in, we could just, simply start with a short introduction of yourself and your project. So, Emma, do you want to go first? And then maybe Gary can introduce himself and talk a bit about Wi-Fi Map as well.
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. I'm Emma. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer and Business Development Manager at Pummel Better Health. So, I look after all of our corporate stuff. We are a gamified mental and physical wellness platform. We work with a number of corporate organizations across the world, and we have over 200,000 registered users, 250,000 registered users of all walks of life. Sort of the primary function of our business is to sort of provide challenges and things like that for organizations to give to their employees. And that's sort of our main revenue model. So we are sort of a Web 2.5. We use blockchain technology to essentially reward and distribute points and things like that for people completing healthy activities. But the primary sort of focus and number of our users come from that corporate and Web 2 side that you could say.
Very interesting. Web 2.5, so somewhere in between Web 3 and Web 2. Very cool. Uh, Gary, over to you.
Hey, thanks. So my name is Gary Bogatin. I'm the Chief Investment Officer at Wi-Fi Maps, and we've been around for around 8 years as a Web 2.0 company. We've only started our Web 3.0 journey in the last year or so. We have 4 million active users on a monthly basis, and we help people find internet, connect internet when people are traveling, or communities that don't have access to internet. We help them find it. We're a crowd-sourced group, so that's what makes us Web 3.0. Our users add hotspots all around the world and help each other basically to find internet when traveling and stuff like that. We're also integrating into the eSIM world and the VPN world, where we're helping people have internet at a very cheap and effective cost basis before they travel. So this way they don't have to deal with finding an eSIM or a SIM card in the new place that they're at. And like I said, we started our journey to Web 3.0 around a year ago, and our token just launched around 2 months ago. And we use our token to give discounts, but also incentivize our community to help with the crowdsourcing.
Perfect. Thank you for that. So let's start with the discussion. And I think the first thing which we could discuss is, what do you guys think about 2023 as the, year to date? It's been almost 7 months now that we're into this year. It has been slightly bearish. Do you think we are in a bear market? And why do you think it's bearish right now?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, gosh, 7 months, I actually can't believe it. I feel like I've blinked and it's gone from Christmas and we're sort of heading into the almost the tail end of 2023. So, but yeah, I think in my opinion, 2023 has been sort of a big year of discovery for cryptocurrency and just generally the Web3 space in general. There's been a lot of lessons learnt by people throughout sort of 2021, 2022, and the start of this year. You can obviously look at the big headlines such as FTX collapsing, obviously all the issues with regulations and securities. And it is a little bit grim when you sort of think that that is the only news that kind of makes it out alive to the rest of the space for the most part. However, I think there's obviously still a lot of merit to blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies and things like that itself. And what you're finding is that for the most part, it is believers who are sticking around and trying to make products, and we're seeing a little bit more of a quality of people coming through, especially compared to you look at things like NFT projects or stuff like that back in the people run, not a website, nothing like that sort of going out. So I guess, yes, it is bearish when you look at sort of the quantitative finance focused metrics like volume, but I'm personally far from bearish on the technology itself. And the companies who are still here, they're much wiser and they're continuing to lift up the quality of the products that are going out.
Well, I think I agree with that as well. If you look at the prices or the, trading volume, then you feel that, the market is bearish. However, if you just look at the overall, crypto awareness and, now how many people are into this, how many bigger companies, which were like, the Web 2 companies getting into Web 3 and, exploring blockchain technology, cryptocurrency, it seems like at an all-time high. So prices may, be lower, or the volumes may be lower, but in terms of the awareness and in terms of where we are going, it seems fantastic. Like every second person you speak to is, wanting to know more about crypto, and is already aware of, what blockchain and what crypto is.
Yeah, I think also like it's really important to know that Web3 adoption or blockchain adoption might not come through something like Twitter, for example. People have this almost echo chamber version of what Web3 is in their head, and if you look at the cost of NFTs or the cost of crypto and stuff like that, back peak bull run, that is not achievable for 99.9% of the population to ever have that kind of spare money in their life. So if you look at sort of mass adoption from an actual number of users perspective, these sort of corrections and changes are actually genuinely required for us to reach more people. So in my opinion, it's just even more so just the market correcting itself rather than falling when it comes to some sorts of types of digital assets.
Well, yeah, that's a perspective as well. Gary, what do you think?
So yeah, I kind of agree with what Emma said, and from the most part, if you look at the bull runs are great for price and good for speculation. And I think the bear markets are what's healthy for the overall technology. What you end up seeing is that in the bull market, every project that comes out, even if they're not good or not qualified to be a Web3 project, typically gain traction and it becomes more of a cult following, which is great for people to make money in the short term, but in the long term, it's bad for the space. And what you see in the bull market is that, in the bear market, is that quality projects get funded and projects that don't really have anything behind them don't get funded, which in the long term for the technology and for the space is healthy. It's very similar to what we saw in the 1990s with the tech boom or internet boom. We saw all these companies get funded basically with just .com, same way that we saw a lot of money going into the blockchain kind of space. And then basically the companies that made it out of there, the Googles, the Amazons, and so on, ended up really thriving and changing not only the space but also the world. So I think that even though we're in a bear market based on volume, not necessarily price for the big coins, more for the small coins, like the altcoins are doing pretty poorly compared to the Bitcoins and the Ethereums in the world. I think it's actually healthy for the long term because it takes out a lot of companies that don't deserve to be in the space.
Well, yes, I think the bear market gives the users and everybody around a deeper perspective into, which are the companies that are going to stick around for a longer time, and which are the companies that are really building a product that's going to work even if, the market fluctuates. But Gary, tell us a little more about the token sale which you had for Wi-Fi map. It happened in 2023, in this year itself, which is a bit bearish. But how has your experience been so far?
So it's obviously much harder than it has been in the bull market. Obviously, FTX, like mentioned before, and also Luna and 3AC, there was a lot of projects that got a lot of big headlines, which scare people off, especially people who are not deep in this space. But on the other hand, what we did see is that a lot of the venture capitalists and a lot of the small investors really did their research and really did their homework about our project. And instead of just throwing money into every project that comes around, they really felt part of our community. And they also felt that our community and our company is the right place to invest their money, which we appreciate and we love. And like I said before, it's harder to raise money, but I feel like the money that we raised, we have real people who believe in our product.
All right. So I have another question, and we may have covered it in the previous uh, topics as well. But what specific trends have you seen so far in this year that you think are different from the past few years? Uh, Emma, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think generally we're just moving a little bit away from the whole when Lambo and hype men situation. I feel like all of the conversations and most of the conversations that I've been having lately, although I still get to have my degenerate crypto talks and fun with the industry, which I also love. But it feels like things are moving a bit more professionally, in my opinion. People are looking at ways to sort of interact with people's daily lives using blockchain technology. rather than giving them away a ticket to a potentially winner drive around a lap with a celebrity. It's a good thing in my opinion, but we're moving away less from sort of that like hype-based marketing, the influencer-based marketing, and I feel like this year has been sort of the year of the professional when it comes to Web3 tech.
What about you, Gary? What do you think is different in this year?
Uh, like I mentioned, there's a couple of things. The first thing, like I mentioned earlier, was that after the bear market, people are really focusing on good projects. So, like Emma said, it's not about hype. It's not about can you build a ton of people on Twitter and not have a real product and just like pump your token to the moon and all of these meme stuff. Even though the meme coins did have a good rip there at point. And secondarily, I think what we've seen in this year that's been a little bit different than the previous years is that the majority of the price action has come from the top gainers like Bitcoin and Ethereum. So yes, you saw the meme coins go thousands of percents, but outside of those small amount of meme coins, the majority of altcoin projects didn't really benefit from the price surge that we saw in Bitcoin and Ethereum. And typically, that's usually how bull markets start. And what you see is that the altcoins follow a few months later or a year later or so on, they catch up to the bull market. So it's interesting to see if that trend will hold up.
Well, yes, I think everybody is hoping for that, to, Bitcoin to lead the way, followed by Ethereum, and then followed by other altcoins. Emma, you did mention that, previous few years were focused a lot more on influencer marketing, and, I believe in terms of marketing in crypto, influencer marketing played a major role. Do you think it's going to come back if we enter into a bull market again in the next few months?
Yeah, look, I mean, to be honest, it's never really gone away. Obviously, I think it's lessened down because people are getting a little bit more sensible when it comes to giveaway bots and that sort of stuff. That's probably the key thing that I've seen change from last year to this year. But influencers and people of influence and the key opinion leaders are always going to be a part of marketing. They're always going to be part of a community. I definitely don't see that going away, but I think people are just generally getting wiser to some of the tactics that some of the shadier influencers used in the past or businesses used in the past, which is a good thing in my opinion. Which is great. So yeah, we were sort of one of those projects who had an influencer that we were working with that we thought were trusted, who just ended up essentially botting our stuff, which was really unfortunate and really sort of it sort of put a dent in our marketing on the long term. So we were pretty disappointed with that. And that was sort of a big learning experience for us. But I think the value of influencers in themselves, if they have a genuine community that cares about them and wants to follow them, that should and can and will stick around.
Yep, yep. And when we talk about, previous few years, we saw that, tokens which were, based on different metaverse or NFTs had a huge impact in the last bull run. Do you think it is gaining popularity again this year, or in the next bull run, metaverse projects, NFTs, it's going to come back, or it's going to be like a new thing that comes in?
I'm pretty skeptical on the metaverse, generally speaking, coming very soon. So when I think of metaverse and I think of different companies creating their own metaverses in these closed environments, I'm very bearish on that type of metaverse, if that makes sense. But when it comes to something like an open sourced digital environment where it's interoperable assets, it's creative experiences that transcend just a screen in front of you, definitely. I think we are going to get there. The world is certainly becoming more and more digital. If you look on even Instagram these days, you're seeing so much more. Well, I certainly am seeing much more 3D art and these AR VR experiences in Dubai, for example, the Barbie just stepping out, in the Dubai center recently. That sort of stuff is just a key and a piece of the puzzle and the first sort of step towards the metaverse that people are happy about. But if you brand it with an NFT, if you have a $20,000 land sale to even have a piece of the pie, I'm very bearish on that type of metaverse. But yes, I do believe certainly the world will continue to get more and more digital, and there will be a space where we see some more 3D interactions and that sort of stuff. When it comes to NFTs, I think sort of that ownership, asset management and storage is only sort of the way that makes sense in my opinion. So
What do you
yeah.
think, Gary? What do you think about metaverse and NFTs?
I agree with a lot of what Emma said. I think, like I mentioned before about the bear market, I think it takes out a lot of the fake players in the game, the people who are, just in it to make money and not to build something that will help society. I think in the long run, metaverse and NFTs will definitely play a big part in the world. I don't know exactly how it's going to end up being. I think it's hard to predict. I do think there will also be new stuff, right? Every time we see a bull market, at least in crypto, we see that there's new technology and new protocols that are coming out. Last time there was, the DeFi and gaming. So I think in the next bull market, we don't know where it'll be, but we'll definitely see a new kind of sector that leads it, at least for a little while. Like we had DeFi summer and so on. But the world is definitely moving to more of a digital and 3D world, like Emma mentioned. And I think it's really hard to roll back progress. People are really comfortable and understanding it more and more. It just might take some time, but eventually we'll get there.
And what do you guys think about utility tokens? For example, both the platforms that you guys are representing, both of the platforms have utility tokens, right? So, what strategy do you think is going to work out to increase the utility of your platform's token? And what do you think in general should be like a strategy every, utility token should have?
Yeah, sure. I'll go first. So, for us, we have seen a lot of, and I'm not a DeFi head myself, so you'll have to forgive me in the audience if you are. But for me, it's about tying. When it comes to mass adoption, it's about creating experiences that people want to talk about. So for us, we're sort of brainstorming and working on some really innovative and interesting ways to create experiences that someone can go and tell their grandma about. That's kind of my driving force. It's like, well, can you get your grandma to buy Pummel X? Can you explain to your grandma why you would want to get Pummel X? Is there like an experience or an activity that's actually genuinely interesting, that it warrants sort of the interaction with Pummel X and the extra steps that are involved? And then how can we sort of break down those barriers and things like that to make that as easy as possible? So yes, I think like for me, it's sort of bringing it back almost a little bit to the real world, in my opinion, with everything that I do when it comes to utility, and then just sort of moving away from that sort of like raffle and that sort of side of things as well. So, but yeah, more experience based and bringing in sort of extra things that people wouldn't really get without crypto.
Uh, on my part, we are a utility token, and I believe that the job of our company, is to bring more utility, right? So at Wi-Fi Map, we're constantly working on bringing more utility. The utility that we bring has to bring value to our users' lives. Once people see that we roll out more and more utility, I think people will understand the reason why they want to own Wi-Fi token, because you can buy it at a certain price today when there's only a few utilities that can be used, like buying eSIM for a discount and so on. And in the long term, if people see that there's going to be 100 utilities on our ecosystem, they're going to want to hold it now, because the understanding that in the future it will cost more to get participate in that utility. So our goal as Wi-Fi Map is to constantly bring out utilities that people need and want, and that's our goal. Our goal is to understand our users and give them what they want.
Great. I think both of the opinions are, very important. And uh, talking about some other things in this year, one of the things from last year to this year has also been regulators playing a major role in the news in crypto that happens, right? We often hear different regulators talking about regulating crypto and what's new coming, and SEC is always in the news. So generally, what do you think is the impact of regulations on the crypto market, and how do you think it has been in this year so far?
Yeah, I think overall, sort of bringing it back, the headlines have been a little bit bearish, but I think regulation is, and if you sort of think about regulation, I'm sort of talking more about the US when it comes to regulation, right? And securities and whatnot. But if you look at sort of other parts of the world, like over here in Australia, for example, we just had an Australian blockchain conference where some of the biggest banks, government organizations, and business representatives in blockchain all met up for a week-long summit this week to discuss the future of blockchain technology and how it's going to play a part of the Australian scene essentially moving forward, which I think is really exciting. So there's certainly regulation within the US, which is causing some major headlines and I think major headaches and negative price actions. But there are also some really, really great conversations happening outside of the US, and I'm sure even within the US, that will push towards a more regulated and safe environment. I think regulation is important for some reasons. We need to have some standards that we have to meet when it comes to an industry if we want to take it out to more people. And at the same time, it's about us sort of as a cohort and as a group of people sticking to what we are passionate about and the fundamentals of crypto and decentralization, having a little bit of a stand for what we believe in. I think there is generally sort of a bit of an unrest in the whole financial system and the way that people are interpreting governments and banking and all that sort of stuff. So we are primed to have this new way of world be adopted, but it is about taking a stand. However, I do believe that working with the governments and regulators on this is going to be the only way to go about it. So.
Well said, Emma. I think actually regulation in the long run will be good. Even though I think the regulation needs to be split between two. One is regulating the technology and the blockchain, which I think is bad, and I think regulators should stay out of that, like they do with regulating technology with Web2 companies, right? Nobody really regulates Apple too much. On the other hand, because it is a coin and it has a valuation, I believe regulating that side of it is very important because it keeps the scams out. And if you look at the stock market, which is very highly regulated, it does pretty well, right? So as long as the regulators know what to look for and make sure to block out the scams so that everybody feels comfortable to invest. Because right now, one of the biggest problems is crypto and scam, unfortunately. A lot of people put that in their mind when they hear it. People who are not in the crypto business, who've never invested in crypto, a lot of them hear about the scams in the news and just assume that most crypto projects are scams. The regulation will kind of relieve that and allow the average person to feel comfortable in investing and not have to worry about, hey, are they going to steal my funds? On the other hand, from the technology aspect, I think the regulators should stay out as much as they can and allow the decentralized platforms to do what they need to do so that people are not regulated by certain countries, but by different governments that are not necessarily good actors. And I think that's deregulation is very important for those type of people.
Agreed. Thanks for that. And what do you guys think about the decentralized exchanges and centralized exchanges? Because regulations are mostly around the exchanges first, and then it comes to different tokens and all of those things. And what do you think overall about an exchange's role in crypto adoption? How important do you think is it for a token to be listed on a major exchange, be it a centralized exchange or a decentralized exchange? And yeah, what do you think about it?
Yeah, I think, like in my opinion, it really depends on what you're trying to achieve. If you want a mass adopted product, centralized exchanges are important to have an on ramp and off ramp for a lot of people. To convert that into fiat, and then that's usually when you get the most word of mouth when someone sort of takes that cash out. So it is can be quite helpful and beneficial for a project or a cryptocurrency coin to gain an audience, can gain traction, and also have a place where people can securely trade if they're a newbie and aren't sort of familiar with the ins and outs of DEX tools, or all that sort of stuff, because that's kind of next level for someone who's just entering the crypto space. But if you're building a product that is built for natively decentralized people. I don't really necessarily think that it's that big of a deal. However, obviously, centralized exchanges obviously have their own communities, they bring their own volume, and it is sort of a quote unquote safer way that the general public sees to buy and sell crypto.
Yeah, 100% agree with Emma. Yeah, centralized exchanges are really important. And the reason why is because they have a large community and the investors feel like they've done their due diligence, right? So if a company is listed on Binance or OKX or Coinbase, a lot of investors feel like the due diligence, at least if it's a scam or not, has been done for them. When you're talking about decentralized exchanges like Uniswap, there's a lot of stuff going on there. I think more people who are comfortable with crypto are okay going there. I think if we're trying to get the moms and pops to invest in it like they do in stocks as a percentage of their portfolio, I think it'll be very hard to convince them to go to a Uniswap or decentralized exchange and find something and buy it and then hold it in an offline wallet. I think people are very, very comfortable with the aspect of logging into an exchange, buying something, and not worrying where it's being held, and feeling safe that their assets are safe.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think this is one topic that people have been discussing since years. That even though we always say in crypto, not your keys, not your coin, and uh, but people really prefer to have that forgot password button when they log on to that exchange. They always know that, even if they forget their password, they lose access. They can simply click, forgot password, and again log in again and get access to their tokens. And even though last year we did see, things like Celsius Network, FTX, people losing a lot of funds, do you think this will, bring a change in the coming years? Like the next several millions of people who will come into crypto would directly onboard through a decentralized exchange, or do you think the story is going to continue, that everybody starts with a centralized exchange, making it easy with a nice, UI UX experience, and then storing funds with a third party, and then probably moving on to a decentralized platform later on in their journey when they are super comfortable uh, with the decentralized finance part of things? What do you guys think about that?
As it stands with dexes the way that they are, I think no. Personally, I think it is just a little bit too difficult. But however, who's to say that in 2-3 years time that there aren't better security measures, there aren't sort of better ways to identify scams for newcomers, that sort of stuff on a decentralized exchange. But yeah, at the moment, as it stands, probably not. It's just too complicated for someone sort of getting started, in my opinion. Whereas centralized exchanges, they have that sort of process to onboard and educate people and the motivation to do that essentially as well.
Yeah, that's 100% correct. I see it going actually into a more centralized aspect. I see consolidation amongst the exchanges. I see regulation, which we spoke about earlier, regulating certain exchanges that people will feel comfortable investing in, which will kind of protect them from the FTXs of the world. In a lot of ways, I see decentralized exchanges being very, very important for places where the governments overregulate, right? Where they go and ban crypto, or whatever the reason is, there's too much regulation. So I see decentralized exchanges being very important in those areas. But for the majority of the world and for the majority of the people, I think centralized exchanges will be the way to go.
Interesting. I also agree with that. Actually, it's gonna take a long time before people, onboard with the decentralized exchanges. But anyway, yes. Coming to the end of this Twitter space, I think it was really interesting. Any closing remarks from your side on, top things, top strategies to look out for in this year, and anything you want the users to know? Let's start with Emma and then Carrie.
Yeah, no, I think just generally I'm as I said still very bullish on the technology. There's a lot of stuff that's happening behind the scenes outside of the next hyped shitcoin, pardon my language, or or NFT project launch. There's a lot of stuff that's happening in the background. A lot of big companies that are actually getting involved, and in my opinion, the next wave of blockchain adoption may not come labeled as cryptocurrency. It may not come labeled as NFTs. It may just be a product that uses blockchain technology without even saying that. And I think that's where we're going to see like a lot of adoption, whether or not that has a flow-on effect outside of that product suite. For example, Reddit, I'm thinking of, obviously Reddit did their NFTs, hugely successful. But have we seen that sort of trail on to the rest of the quote unquote NFT market? No, not so much. I think we're going to see more use cases like that where we have engaged communities using digital rewards. But whether sort of we see the whole ecosystem sort of moving forward this year, I think we're sort of going to be still in a state of building, I think, for another couple of months, to be completely honest with you. But it's a good time to sort of sit there and think, okay, how can I solve real problems? What can I actually do? What can I actually use blockchain for that I couldn't have done with Web2 technology? And how is this going to impact people's lives in a positive way?
Yeah, well said. I agree with everything Emma said. I'd like to add that from an investor perspective, like I mentioned earlier, bear markets are typically good, right? If you live through the bear markets, you end up understanding better and succeeding better. I think this is the time to find the tokens that are thriving, right? The ones that not necessarily price wise are doing well, but the community is doing well. And I think the time of investing in something that just comes out with some white paper and no team and stuff like that. Hopefully that time is done. I think the crypto investor and the investor in general is much more savvy. They've had a ton more experience now living through two bear markets. I think adaptation to blockchain will continue to grow. I think Bitcoin prices and Ethereum prices are very important because that's what makes the news and people hear about it. Oh, Bitcoin making a new high, and they want to get involved, right? They feel like they're missing the boat. And then they start doing research. Once you enter through Bitcoin or any other major crypto, you end up doing research on the altcoins. And I think it's very important to focus right now on the tokens that have big communities that are building something that is substantial and are actually succeeding, as opposed to saying that we will build it and trying to raise money on it. And I think the next bull market, as an investor, if you find the right tokens with big communities, growing utility, I think those are the ones that are going to be the ones that do 10x or 20x from a price perspective. And I think they're the ones that are going to thrive as a community.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Emma, and thank you, Gary, for being here. And I think that's a wrap for today. And it was great having you both on our Twitter space. And thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining in.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Just a small crowd tonight. But yeah, I think it was great to cover some topics. And anyone who's listening in, the recording later, I'm sure we'll appreciate hearing from your perspective at Wi-Fi Map, where you're sort of thinking with the landscape and how you're going to approach that moving forward. So yeah, it's been really great talking with you guys. Really awesome discussion, and looking forward to the next one.
It's a pleasure meeting you guys and talking to you guys. And hopefully both projects will do well and we'll talk much more in the future.
Thank you.